everyone, and welcome. So lovely to have you here with us. My name is Christina.charenkova, and I'm joined by my wonderful friend Minola Jac today. And we are talking about a topic that is very, very close to both of our hearts. It is everyday inspiration for change. Um, we're talking about change because at the end of the day, change happens all of the time. And whether that's in an organizational context, you're changing a new system, you're moving on to a new way of working, you're changing how things are done around in your team, in your function, or you tweaking the culture a little bit. You probably want to be a bit more innovative, or change happens in a personal context. We can draw inspiration from all of the things that happen in our everyday and apply that to how we think about organizations and how they change. That is where sort of my thinking comes from. As I said, if you haven't come across me before, my name is Christina.Charenkova. I'm a change coach, and I love talking about change strategy in an organizational context. I also have a coaching practice, and I have a bunch of LinkedIn learning training courses on the platform, which I'd love you to check out when you have the time. I'll give a chance to Minola to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about why she is interested in change before we deep dive into the conversation. Minola, welcome.
Thank you so very much, Christina, and hello into the future. I know it's almost ungodly early in Australia, and it's quite comfortably mid-afternoon here in Switzerland. This feels like, birthday and Christmas all together. I've been looking forward to this for such a long time. My name is Minola Jac, and when people ask me, so tell me a little bit about you, I always lead with I'm a journalist by trade. I'm a change manager by choice. I'm a serial immigrant. So I'm originally from Romania, but I went through quite a few international relocations. One of the reasons why change is so important to me and such a big part of my life. And as we were chatting just a tiny little bit backstage before going live, I am also navigating a new change in my life, being a first-time author.
Ooh, congratulations!
Thank you. So yeah, I've been doing change work for coming up to 2 decades, but then who's counting? And someone very dear to me asked me, why did I choose to write about change? And I admitted to I never actually chose this topic as much as I feel that this topic chose me. So I wanted to write about something that I've navigated and something that hopefully people can relate with and resonate to.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Now, I know you mentioned your book. So for the people that are just joining us, welcome. If you haven't popped in where you are dialing in from, I think I'm sounding a bit old school saying where you dialing in from, where you joining us on the live stream. Please pop that into the comments. We would love to say hello. Now, as Minola pointed out, I'm based in Australia. It's an ungodly hour. I think it's coming up to 1 a.m. So if you are with me on this side of the world, I would love to hear from you. I don't think that there'll be that many people with me here, but wherever you're dialing from, I would absolutely love to say hello. Any questions that you have for us, please pop them in the comments. As we said, both Minola and I are more than happy to talk about change, to talk about organizational development, to talk about change coaching, to talk about personal change, and anything in between. And Minola is dialing in from Switzerland. So I suspect most of the people that we are probably going to get on the live stream will be either Europe-based or in that sort of similar time zone. but wherever you're dialing from, please pop and say hello. Now, Minola also mentioned that she's a new author. So I did something in my spare time. There's something I prepared earlier. I wanted to show you the little the newest edition of this lovely book that Minola came up with. So Minola wrote Everyday Inspiration for Change. And I wanted to start this conversation, Minola, with just showing everyone that the book is now out and they're able to get it. But I also giving them a little sneak peek of how that came about. It started with a loaf of bread. And for the love of God, I love baking. Today, I was trying to bake a banana cake, which was my normal recipe. It was everything that I have done in the past, same oven, same loaf tin, the same ingredients. And the oven timer went. I went to check it and it hadn't baked. And I thought, this is odd. Okay, I'll put it back in the oven. Then I went back into my things, did my work, went back into the oven, multitasking, working from home and everything. Went back, ding, still not done. I thought, what is going on? What is going on? The universe has some thoughts about this banana bread today. My husband joked at the end of the day. He said, you just came up with a new recipe for a triple baked banana bread. I thought, I could claim that as a thing, But you started, and of course, then I was thinking, what does that teach me about change management? And I started pondering based on the wonderful book that you had written. Now, you started this journey with a loaf of bread. So tell us a little bit about this, if you don't mind, Minola. That would be awesome.
Thank you so very much. I love this reframing of triple baked banana bread. I think that's also such a great analogy to how change happens. And to how, irrespective of how foolproof your change plan / recipe sounds like, or how many times you baked it, still the universe surprises us. And the universe pretty much surprised me with the book because, as I very openly admit, this book never started out as a book. So this book did start with baking bread. So I was still based in Luxembourg in July 2020. And, back then, as we all remember, we got our thrills from either baking bread or vacuuming or doing all sorts of glamorous things.
Yep.
So I was baking bread and for some reason, I got this idea of what baking bread teaches me about change management.
Yeah.
And people ask me, how did this happen? I actually don't know. I just felt it in me. I didn't even think it through. So I just typed it out, barely reread it, posted it on LinkedIn. And it, people reacted surprisingly positively to it. And I was just thinking about, very recently I spoke in a conversation about my childhood, which I don't normally do. And I spoke about the importance of stories and how I spend a lot of time in my head listening to stories. And when I got really, really bored throughout power cuts in communist Romania, I started combining stories together. So there was this side of me connecting things that, basically just to keep my mind active.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what happened. And I also say that the book is irrefutable proof of how bad I am at math, because I thought I would write 3, maybe 5 more. And I ended up writing for 102 consecutive weeks.
Oh my goodness. That is such enormous commitment. Commitment. Was it just the fact that people were commenting and giving you this positive reaction that kept you going? Or did you just think to yourself, I've got things to say, so I need to put it out there? Or was it not even as structured as that?
It definitely helped a lot, seeing how people reacted to them.
Hmm.
I don't think I was so intentional or so aware of me having something to say,
Yeah.
as much as this weekly writing routine started to be, I call them my sanity milestones. So many things were happening in my life, at my work, another relocation, exchanging one lockdown for another, basically, losing friends to
Yeah.
suicide, starting a new job,
Yeah.
breakup, a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I can wake up every Tuesday morning at 4 a.m., this was my writing routine. So every Tuesday morning, my alarm clock would go off at 4 a.m. I would listen to music for 1 hour in my earphones. I just want to make that clear. Very loud while walking around the home. And then I would sit down. I would take a couple of deep breaths, and I would just allow my mind to,
Yeah.
to roam free.
Yeah.
And back to that, um, many people asked me, oh, I was thinking about writing a book, but I keep thinking about why would people be interested in what I have to say. And
Mm.
I shared with them that for me that was never the right question.
Yeah.
For me, the right question is, why is it important for me to share a part of myself,
Mm.
with someone else? And then whatever meaning other people find, that's not my answer to find. That's
Mm.
theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Um, and I think sometimes, I mean, COVID was such a strange time for everyone. But it was so nice to have a creative outlet and to
Mm,
be able to, put down on paper all of these random thoughts, which you call them random thoughts. Sometimes similar to you, I suppose, I sit at my desk or I make a cup of tea and I go, oh, okay, this, reflecting on things. But a lot of the time that just stays in your head and it swirls
mm,
around. And putting it down and sharing it with people and getting this amazing, amazing feedback, which is, great to feel that connection, I suppose, especially during strange times. But
mm.
even after, as you continued writing and as the journey propelled and accelerated, even, I suppose you felt a degree of, I have to keep writing it because there are people out there expecting me that every Tuesday I will sit down and write my random thoughts.
I somehow feel that there's no one right way to answer that question, because
Yeah.
I say that yes, I did that. It was me um, pretty much giving in into the social media pressure. If I
Mm.
say that no, not really, that would completely diminish the
Yes.
absolute life and sanity saving value of people interacting with my writings. But
Yeah.
what is very fair to say is that I I wasn't necessarily that aware of I need to write because people expect it. So I never
Yeah.
created that additional pressure. And
Mm.
speaking about additional pressure, I really want to take a moment, because in Europe and US, and for you it's already yesterday, but we are celebrating World Mental Health Day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to take a second to acknowledge it, and also to celebrate it by saying that people who are involved in doing change work, and especially
Mm,
those who do change work as a calling and a vocation beyond a job title that has change or
mm,
transformation in it. They do take upon themselves so many additional layers of pressure, and
mm.
I just want to put that out there, and to really invite everyone to take a moment and look
Yeah.
at, is this my pressure? Is this the pressure that I feel from the others? And how
Mm,
can I reconcile all these layers?
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great call out. And, I suppose coming from consulting or like a project sort of environment, it can be very stressful, it can be very fast paced, and especially people in the change realm or people doing, bringing big transformations to life, there there is a lot of pressure on their shoulders. And I think sometimes we don't realize that there is a lot of pressure. And, you know, I know that probably sounds a little bit out of place, but the worst that can happen is that the project doesn't succeed. That's the worst that can happen. Like, let's just be mindful that we are all human beings. We're all striving for the same thing, and we're
Mm.
all trying to work together towards an outcome. Um, and if we can appreciate that, and if we can all take a moment and pause and think about the other person and what motivates them and why they're asking that question, maybe there's a background story to that. We can be in a lot better place um, than being against each other, I suppose, is what we see. Oh, so and so, they're doing this project, and we've all heard these stories. Um, let's talk a little bit about change management. And I say this with a capital C and capital M, because I know that there will be a lot of people listening to this going, well, what about change management? What
Mm.
methodology are you talking about? What tool set? What is the approach? Is it ProSci? Is it ATCAR? Is it by some consulting company? What exactly are you following? Why are you doing it that way? What does Minola subscribe into? And what is your methodology? And that could be a formal methodology or it could be an informal methodology.
I love this question just so much. And I consider it a very special gift, because it creates the opportunity for me to speak about my personal and professional crusade.
Mm,
And that is really trying to move away from using the label change management and replace it with change work. And I will explain what I mean.
mm,
So in my mind, there is always a three-legged stool. There's mindset, there's skill set, and then there's tool set. Yeah.
yeah.
The organizational world has been buying into the promise of any and all frameworks and methodologies for a smooth, linear process. And we are
Mm,
sold on the mirage of the
yeah.
tools. Yeah. And, Maslow, in the law of the instrument, he said that to anyone with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So
Hmm.
before I move into answering what's my preferred methodology,
Yeah.
I just want to say that whenever I am in a conversation and within the first 5 minutes, they ask me, so what methodology will you be using? And I know it's highly impolite to answer a question with another question, but I'm a journalist. I love questions. I can't help myself. I ask them back. Imagine you walk into a doctor's office and you say, "Hey doc, I've been coughing.
Yeah.
and you get a prescription with no questions regarding, what's the nature of your cough? Have you been coughing, for 2 weeks, for 2 years? What's your medical history?
Yeah.
Do you work in an outside environment? Do you work in a heavily air conditioned environment?
Yeah.
How much would you trust that prescription?
Yeah.
And it's the same. And
Yeah.
what I also come to realize is that change management has this aura slash stigma oftentimes that it's corrective. Yeah. In the
Yes.
book, I call it that I sometimes feel like change management is used like the blue pill to project management. You think about change management when things are not doing great, and
Mm-hmm.
it's corrective. I was
Yes.
in a conversation a few years back, and um, we were talking with this business leader, and they looked at me and they said, I don't think we will end up working together because I don't need change management. I have no burning platform. And I almost, expected the wink, wink. In, instead, I smiled and I said, I'm so happy to hear that. What's your burning ambition?
Yeah.
So I oftentimes try to say I do change work. I don't do change management because I
Mm.
want my work to touch on mindset, skill sets, and tool sets.
Yeah.
So back
Yeah.
to your question, I'm pretty much methodology agnostic. I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that some methodologies work better within some environments, addressing some types of projects. And then there are other methodologies better suited for different contexts and different
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
question is, what are we using the methodology for?
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Great. I think it's great to answer a question with a question when people are expecting that sort of magic wand that you'd swirl around. Oh, here's the methodology. Here's everything that we're going to do. It's kind of copy and paste from one project to the next, or from one set of tools. Here we go. This is what we're going to do. Um, in
yeah,
some cases, it may work, but it's not the corrective action I think that people are expecting. And
mm,
change work is complex. It deals with people's emotions. It deals with people's motivations and their expectations. And how often do we talk about that at work? You know what I mean? Like, oh, but what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with the resistance? Um, which is always an interesting question that we as change workers we get. I suppose it's about the change resistance and how we're going to manage that. And I love that parallel that you draw in the book. We call it change management in the corporate world, but we call it dealing with change in life. Yeah. And we
mm,
just deal with change, don't we? At work, it tends to be very regimented. So and so is resisting to this, or this department is resisting, or this partner is resisting to this. So we need to bring them along. Okay. Let's bring
yeah.
them along. Well, let's talk to them as if, they're human. They're not just so.
I I made a post-it with I still think in post-its, so no
Yeah.
surprise there, no change there. I made a post-it with resistance, and I will come back and pick up on this conversation, Candy, regarding resistance. But backtracking just a little bit regarding change management and methodologies.
Mm.
I am rereading an amazing book now. It's called Using Scenarios by a guy called Thomas Chernak,
Okay.
Charnak,
Yeah.
and the books is built around um, the fact that many people believe that the magic is in how we build scenarios. But all the
Mm.
scenario planners and all the scenario thought leaders they say that, if they could give people one fundamental advice, is that use 1/3 of the time building the scenario and
Yeah.
2/3 of the time actually using it. So if
Mm.
I link this back to the methodology, is irrespective of the methodologies and the tool sets that they use, there's about a handful of fundamental tools.
Mm-hmm.
The only times when I encourage people and support people to be absolutely adamant about the tools and the formats that they use
Yeah.
is if it's compliance driven. So if they
Yeah.
are expected for an audit to have certain formats,
Mm-hmm.
or if they have to integrate their change management
Yeah.
tools into a wider existing project documentation. And
Mm-hmm.
then the formats are, paramount. But other than that,
Yeah.
it's almost irrelevant what methodology or tool sets you use.
Yeah.
And 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 back to the resistance point, Christina, I would like to link it to what we talked about, creating additional pressure.
Mm.
Because I believe we create so much additional pressure within change work by bringing in binary thinking, because we want to oversimplify things. So if people are not for change, they're against change. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I suppose that's what's that's what the corporate world is telling us, right? It's kind of like you either come along with me on the journey or you don't come along with me. And then what do we do if you don't come along? Like we don't have an alternative scenario. By the way, I'd love you if you can drop the name and the title of the book and the author in the comments if people are interested in grabbing that or in referencing it, Minola. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was really powerful, like using scenarios. And what I suppose what I've tried to do in my change work, let's let me be careful here what I say, is try to be experiment driven. You know, we set out how we're going to do something. Let's try it. Let's give it a go. And then we iterate it from there and we see whether that is producing the results that we were expecting or whether it's moving in the right direction or the direction is shifting. And then we can move along with it. You know, it's something that's evolving. It's not just this is the approach and now it's time for communications and all we're going to do is communicate. You know, now it's time to capture the impact. All we're going to do is capture the impact. I suppose for someone that is new in the change management world, it's quite confusing. You know, if you're just stepping in into the change management side or you kind of part of a big project initiative doing transformation work, you're like, okay, but I still need the tools. I still need to understand, you know, what are the steps that I need to take. I still need to be guided by something. So in that sense, if someone's junior, if someone's trying, or if someone's new to the change management side or to change work, like what is your go-to resource? Where do you normally point them to? Or, or how do you, you know, coach them along?
So yes, again, I will step back a little bit from go to this resource.
Yeah.
For someone who's new within, within the change work, what I would really recommend that they do is before they start looking for tools, I would recommend that they really try to understand what people making requests of them understand through one, change, and second, change management.
Mm.
Because both change and change management as a label They are so overused that they became almost
Mm.
self-explanatory, but different
Yeah.
people mean different things by them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
before going to, I will need this tool set, really try to understand what good looks like for the people requesting,
Mm.
deliverables. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
based on that, really understand, are they coming from a mostly IT, ETIL, or whatever other environment driven expectation, and they mean change management in the IT sense? Are
Yeah.
they coming from a process and continuous improvement
Right.
background and they expect change management more around processes and procedures? Yeah.
Mm.
Or are they coming from an organizational people behavioral standpoint and then you
Yeah.
go to the people side of change?
Yeah.
So that is the first one. Before you go
Yeah.
around looking for tools, understand how people requesting those tools will
Yeah.
say if you got the right ones or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there is no methodology that
Yeah.
tells you this or makes you comfortable asking those questions. I had
Yeah.
um, I had a conversation recently with someone that I mentor, and
Mm.
they were struggling with getting comfortable going to senior decision makers and steering committee level people and asking questions. and
Mm.
and I told her,
Yeah.
look, if we look at project management, and we always have to balance three fundamentals: time, quality, and resources.
Mm.
Please understand that under resources is not just headcount and money. A fundamental resource for change work is access to senior people,
Yes.
their
Yeah.
commitment to be there, and you mentioned agile, to be
Mm.
there and really, make decision making as accessible, transparent, and smooth as possible.
Mm. Yeah.
But that's, again, I haven't seen a methodology calling this out, transparently. And
No, very true.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I would tell people that just start is look for people who have different ideas
Mm.
and connect the dots and look for the principles and the trends in what you're
Yeah.
hearing, as conflicting the information as it might be.
Yeah. 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 It just reminded me of something that I hadn't planned on mentioning, but talking about change management, I suppose, and people stepping into the change management world. I have a friend who is a consultant through and through to the core, and I love her to bits, dearly. Um, but she has been doing change work since I've known her, but she refuses to this day to admit to herself, I think, more than anything, that she's doing change work. But she is brilliant at it. People are recognizing it for it. People are going to her because, she is absolutely amazing at what she does. And they go to her and they, kind of trying to piece together how she does it and the approaches she's using. And for her, it comes just naturally. So
Mm.
if you are new in an organization and you see someone who does change brilliantly, they may not have the title of change manager. They may not have the title of project manager. They may not have the title of a senior leader. But if you see them do change, like you can start mirroring what they do. You can ask them for mentoring. It can be very informal. I think that's what I love about change work, to use the terminology you're using. Like, it doesn't have to be formal change management with capital C, capital M, right?
Amen. So this is the moment where I hear, angels playing violin, because this is something that I say all the time.
Yeah.
Appointing a change manager
Mm.
doesn't mean that
Yeah.
anyone and everyone within the project team or even within the wider organization
Yeah.
delegate and outsource change happening.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
strongly believe that change work is an mindset and a skill set that should be
Mm.
embedded in any role,
Yeah.
hierarchy agnostic.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
for me, the best training for doing what I do today was my training as a journalist.
Mm. Yeah.
Because what that taught me was that it comes down to your accountability and
Mm.
ability to make, to sense make to other people
Yeah.
who might have never seen what you saw, who might have never heard what you heard. And
Mm.
and it's about how can you make something interesting and meaningful to an
Yeah.
audience where some people might have, come across the topic, others might be, just receiving this as breaking news.
Yeah.
And I think change is a little bit like that.
Mm. Yeah.
you know Going back to methodologies, I believe in three absolute foolproof um, tools, and they never let me down: curiosity, courage, and compassion. Everything
Mm.
else is logistics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curiosity, courage, and compassion. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And this is when we talk about change work with the people aspect in focus, right? Let's
Mm.
um just to point that out in case somebody was going, okay, but how do you do curiosity when we're talking about IT compliance? Well, I suppose you can still be curious. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure that IT compliance can be fascinating,
I,
and it and it
yeah.
comes down to asking questions. So this is something that
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to really ask questions. And if
Mm,
you can't think of a question, just say
yeah.
something really simple.
Yeah.
Just be in a conversation with someone and say, "Tell me more."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that one of the comments that I read at the start of your book was that, and it kind of stuck with me, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, is um, Minola makes the change management work sound very fun and enjoyable. So I was struck by this. Okay, this lady knows how to do change. Let's talk about fun and enjoyment. Now, invariably, when we're doing big transformations or the company's going through change, people are impacted, it's stressful, it's complex. How do we make it more fun and enjoyable? How do you make it more fun and enjoyable for people?
Hmm. So let's very quickly dismantle, this myth that being funny makes you less professional.
Yeah.
Um, I will drop all the books that I mentioned in the comments. For some reason, it's a
Yeah,
bit
fantastic.
complicated for me, but I will do that. And it's a wonderful book. It's called Humor Seriously,
Mhm.
and it basically advocates for the fact that human is serious business, and I believe in that.
Yeah.
There's an ever growing body of research that proves that humor is the fastest way to
Yeah.
tell someone that you're human. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that will create bonding than a smile.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, even when you do something that is uncomfortable or a little bit off, make a joke out of it. Don't,
Yeah.
ignore it because it's not professional.
Yeah.
So I think there's something in me, making fun of things is also a big part of, okay, confession time, a big part of my coping mechanism.
Right.
So it comes natural to me to be a little
Yeah.
bit on the easygoing, lighthearted side of life.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I am less committed or less serious or less professional in,
Mm.
in my interactions. And that's something that we really need to,
Yeah.
um, address head on once and for all.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's just, ask people, start small, start with something that feels comfortable to you, because there's
Mm.
nothing worse than forced humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ask people, so what do you do, and or what do you
Mm.
love doing outside of work? Or
Yeah.
if nothing else, as an icebreaker, ask people, what's the funniest thing you've witnessed in the workplace? Or what's a story related to change that felt brutal while you were going through it, but now you can look back and smile? What made it
Mm.
funny in retrospect? So
Yeah.
use that kind of approach. And
Yeah.
another book, this happens with me all the time. I'm a book addict.
I love your recommendations. They're always awesome.
So there's a wonderful lady called Karen Rinaldi, and she wrote a book called um, "It's Great to Suck at Something." And she basically advocates for the
Yeah.
huge value of finding something that we're hopeless and helpless at,
Not quite good at it.
and celebrate doing it,
Yeah.
because that will make us comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
That would in time help us reconcile the pressure of getting things perfect. So
Mm.
as Brené Brown says, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and an inspiring good enoughist. So I'm on my journey.
Love that. Yeah.
um but just
Yeah.
really don't take yourself so seriously. That's
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. And another thing that comes to mind now, again from the book, is that you talk about this bringing your authentic self to work, and how much of that are we able to do at the workplace. And the story that comes to mind is your tattoos. um, and I think that's one thing that we're not that we can definitely improve when it comes to corporate workplaces, where it can be very um, regimented. It can be very unfun, how do we open that up a little bit? And I think we are getting much better. We're getting much better. We're very inclusive. But even some of that inclusivity, I think now seems to be like we're inclusive because we have to be inclusive. How do we break it up a little bit? How, like you say, how do we find something that we suck at and we actually laugh about that? But also like try to be a little bit of a change maker and bring that culture into work yourself, because I suppose if it's not necessarily the done thing at work, if nobody is doing it, then somebody needs to set the precedent and start doing it little by little. And like you say, it's baby steps at the start. It doesn't have to be I'm bringing my full self to work.
I mean, you know this just as well as I do, that change work is sometimes revolution, sometimes evolution, and
Yeah,
you just try to dance with this too,
it's,
and pushing
it's a bit of a
boundaries,
dance.
yeah, and see how much you can get away with.
Yeah.
But I strongly believe it comes down to seeing the world through a binary lens.
Mm.
So, tattoos means something, no tattoos is a guarantee for the
Yeah.
exact opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or having fun means I'm not taking things seriously,
Yeah.
and taking things very seriously automatically makes me an,
Yeah.
infinitely better professional. Um, what I do believe is I'm all for DEI. But for me, the strongest statement for DEI is
Yeah.
not metrics, but
Mm.
diversity of opinions, and diversity of
Mm.
thoughts, and
Yeah.
diversity of questions, and diversity of experiences. And going back to
I love that.
bringing your authentic self to work, and I just recently wrote about that. One of the most frustrating, binary experiences is that when people that don't know me ask me, so what do you do for a living? And I say that I'm a change manager, they go directly to, oh, you must love change. And again, you know, I
Yes,
tell
I
them,
do. I do.
no, I tell them, look, let me ask you a question. My mom, she's a doctor. Now, would you expect her never to get sick?
Yes.
And I think it's the same.
Yeah. I love you drawing those parallels with your mom as a doctor. I love how we spoke about, sitting down and somebody says, "What's the approach?" And then they take away the prescription without even understanding the symptoms. I think that is very powerful. And if people take away just that from today's conversation, I'd be happy, just because there is so much more depth to change. There's so much more dimension. And like, um, it doesn't have to be all serious. It doesn't have to be all, documentation and how communication efforts and tedious work, I suppose. Working with people is fun, and that's what drove me to change. It's making that connection with the other person, with the other team, with another executive. And that's what really keeps us going and keeps us happy at work. It's the connections that we build, it's the relationships that we have at work, right?
Mm.
So a few takeaways. I know we're kind of getting close to our time. Um, I wanted to ask before we go. This Your book started as a bit of a blog, a bit of a newsletter on LinkedIn, as Tuesday Random Change Thoughts. Where is that at? And if people wanted to find you, are you still writing? If people wanted to find more of your work, or people wanted to find you, wanted to follow you, what is the best way to keep hold of you and to get some of that inspiration for change?
Mm. So I'm very easily findable on LinkedIn. I use my full name on LinkedIn, and please do reach out. For the time being, I am not writing every week a newsletter edition. I
Yeah.
do miss the discipline of writing, so I will most probably rethink and reshape that part.
Yeah.
The book is, as you so generously mentioned, the book is available on all Amazon platforms. But
I'll
do
just
get,
put it
thank you.
again on the screen so people can see it. There it is. Everyday inspiration for change.
Thank you. But do get in touch over LinkedIn. You can find me there. Every now and again, I have a thought or an idea or a question, and I share that with the world.
Yeah, fantastic. And I would encourage anyone that's on the broadcast who hasn't followed Manola yet. please do. She has some wonderful thoughts in posts. So even though you're not writing the Tuesday challenge, I still find your posts extremely inspiring, informative, and drawing, nuggets of gold from them. As this morning my washing machine flooded my laundry, and I was thinking, what would Minola say about that? how do I turn into, positive rather than cursing and swearing?
I, I,
but
I
but
also
it did.
believe that cussing and swearing, they do have their
Yeah.
time and value.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh, yeah.
But thank you so very much, Christina, and it means the world coming from you, because I am an absolute fan of your LinkedIn Learning courses.
Oh,
So
thank you.
so back to your question, where would I recommend junior, and not just junior, people in the space of change work to start? Absolutely start with Christina's courses.
Oh, thank
Um, yeah, they're amazing, really, really amazing.
Thank
And
you so much.
just as a parting thought,
Yeah.
I am all for frameworks, methodologies, and tools.
Yeah.
Use them to create mental reflexes, and use
Mm,
them to create the comfort that there's always something happening and there's always a response.
yeah.
You might not know now what that will be, 2 months down the road or 2 years into the implementation,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
know that you can sense make.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And I love the fact that, you can use the tools. You don't have to obey the tools. You can use them for ideas, use them to create something, go and explore different tool sets. Like, it doesn't have to be the same methodology. Um, and see what works. Change is very sort of evolving as time is evolving. And what, I suppose back when I started my career, we used to have these big SAP projects. That's how I started into the change world. It was the big SAP implementations in big corporates. And the people in the organization would see this big transition coming along, and they'd be like, okay, so that's a big change, but after we finish this, we're done with change. So they would see it definitely as a linear event. Like, it has a start and it has a finish, and after we're done, like, there's not going to be any more change. Like, now we know change is continuous, like, especially in the environments that we live now. Tell me one organization that doesn't go through change on daily basis. So we now know that we can't do it as a linear event. It's not that it can't be done. It's not even, it doesn't conform to linearity. So having that in mind, be open-minded, be open to experiments, go and create some different cases and try them and see what works, and go and ask questions. I love that from a takeaway from our conversation. Be curious about people, systems, processes, and go and ask all the questions that you have. um, it was so lovely to have you, Manola, on this conversation. I am so very honored that you came as a guest on this LinkedIn Live. Um, as mentioned again, if anyone's watching this as a replay, or we're finished with a conversation and you think of a question, please drop that in the comments, and Manola and myself will come back and answer those. If you're interested in any of the books that Manola mentioned, or in purchasing Manola's book, We will drop all of those links in the comments below. And I'll also drop a few of my courses to do with change. So then you guys get an opportunity to go and test those. Again, so very thrilled to have you, Minola. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words
Just
before we close off?
just a big thank you to everybody watching, either now live or later on in the recording. An even bigger thank you, Christina, to you for creating this space, and especially going the extra mile across time zones. Um, and yeah, and just you know, don't fall into the trap that change happens linearly. There's
Mm,
no door that you can slam shut in change management. Even if you do the best, most comprehensive stakeholder analysis and mapping, you
mm,
will go and revisit it.
yeah.
Um, I oftentimes tell people that I work with that think about change work as a revolving door. You cannot slam it shut unless you're Chuck Norris. So, um,
Mm,
you know, that's the reality. And
yeah.
remember to have fun, and remember to not create additional pressure,
Yes.
um, and fight against binary mindsets all
Mm,
the time.
yeah. Yeah. That I love that. I love your metaphors. Chuck Norris. Who would have thought of Chuck Norris? The brilliant Manola.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you everyone that joined us. I really enjoy that. I hope to see you here again in the future. Manola, I would love to host you again. Perhaps we can do this as a revolving door conversation.
I would love to, and I would love to, revolve around time zones. So
Oh,
let's try different time zone settings.
let's try to. I'm all up for that. It's approaching 2 a.m. here. So I have to say, I'll be off to bed very soon.
Wonderful. I
Um,
think that's a wonderful change initiative.
yes, yes. Again, it was such a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. And enjoy this if you're watching it as a replay. Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.